I'll be one of your presenters along with Roxanne Brown. Rox, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Today we'll be going over Communique for Amazon Seller Central. It's a brand new tool designed to help you figure out what's going on with your settlements and other things like that. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so things to remember for today's presentation. Use the questions tab to submit questions or communicate problems. We'll conduct a Q&A at the end of the webinar. If you're using audio through GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. For best results, close email, messenger, or any program which uses bandwidth. Today's presentation will be recorded. And a little data disclaimer here. Okay, we are using real-world Amazon data. We've obfuscated the data to some degree so that it's not easily identifiable. In other words, it's kind of anonymous. But the issues that we're going to be dealing with are, in fact, the same kind of issues that are really happening out there. So let's get to the next slide here. All right, so today's agenda is going to be about Communique for Amazon Seller Central, as we mentioned. We'll talk a little bit about dashboards, but we'll spend a lot of time on settlements, reconciliation, talking about accounting summary and implications. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the orders, buyers, products, FBA, data sync, plus more items. Towards the end, we'll probably spend an extra 10 minutes today talking about some of the Stone Edge stuff for those people who are using Stone Edge. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Roxanne. Roxanne, if you would.
Okay. Hi, Tom. Thanks for inviting me. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So a little bit of background. My name is Roxanne. The website is consultingforqb.com, and the company is Professional Business Solutions. I've been a bookkeeper for 35-plus years and a QuickBooks Certified Pro Advisor since the inception of the program back in 98, 99, somewhere in that time frame. And I've been working with e-commerce clients in particular since that time frame as well. So I'm always on the lookout for tools or programs that's going to make the accounting side just a little bit easier, since e-commerce merchants tend to be jack of all trades. You know, you guys are trying to manage everything from website design to pick, pack, and ship, customer service, inventory, so on, and of course accounting. In the last couple of years, the merchants selling on Amazon Seller Central or participating in Amazon FBA, which is fulfilled by Amazon if you're new to the terms, has really been increasing. You know, actually month over month this year, it's just been going up. So it's definitely a shift in the industry. Selling on the marketplaces can be great for the business, but the profit margins tend to be really, really, really tight. And so because of that, it's more important than ever that you guys can analyze the data. You know, you need that insight with what's selling and what's not, you know, what's trending. You have to stay competitive, and this is going to be the easiest way of doing it and the best way. So over the years, I've worked with many merchants who were cutting and pasting their orders into QuickBooks or Excel, or attempting to, you know, rekey things back in. But when you get to a certain level of transactions, like 10, 15 orders a day, that's no longer feasible. And honestly, it's almost impossible to stay on top of things at that point. I've also worked with merchants who relied solely on bank statements to book the revenue and expenses. You know, they may download their settlement files, and then they try to use a bunch of macros to cut and paste and understand the details. And again, it may work for a little while, but at some point, it's not going to cut it. Then the file formats change, and you know, there goes your macros and all the hard work. So using any of those methods, it's extremely difficult and time-consuming, if not all but impossible. And if you're trying to book your revenue just by the bank statements, you know, how are you keeping up with your inventory and your selling trends and return ratios? How do you know if you need, you know, if you're getting paid for everything? That's always the number one question I get. And, you know, when do you need to replenish your inventory at FBA or your warehouse? You know, how are you going to know that? So anyone that's out there that's already selling on Amazon, you've probably looked at the settlement and the fulfillment and the order files at least once. All the details are there. Certainly they're all there. But it's a challenge to reliably work with that data and try to reconcile anything. Just take into consideration a couple things. You know, Amazon, when they pay the merchants, it's all inclusive for a time frame. So if you're Seller Central, FBA, you know, it's all combined. Typical payouts is every 2 weeks. So, and of course it crosses over. You know, if a batch ends on the 5th, it also starts on the 5th. So that's always a lot of fun. And then you got the fees. It's in and out, in and out, in and out. And in working on this project with Tom, even as long as I've been doing this, it's been eye-opening. We've actually found a lot of interesting things that we may have suspected, but now you can actually put your finger on it. So at the minimum, you need to be able to reconcile the orders against the payments, right? You need to make sure that you're getting paid for everything. And again, that's the number one question. You know, if you don't upload your tracking numbers, you're not going to get paid, right? And how are you guys catching that right now? If, you know, you're a smaller merchant, you might be catching it because you're looking order by order. But once you're doing a substantial volume, chances are, you know, that's going to go undetected. And it can add up, and it's going to have a direct impact to your bottom line, of course. So, you know, again, every week we get asked, how do we reconcile the accounts? How do we know we're getting paid? How do we manage the products? If you're using QuickBooks and an order importer or an order manager like StoneEdge or a combination of programs to audit the numbers, again, the challenge is going to be to reconcile that against those Amazon files. And it is a necessary job. You know, you have to do it. So, you know, enter Communique for Seller Central, which has made me a very happy pro advisor the last few weeks. I'd asked Tom to develop this a while back. You know, I wanted an easy way to import settlement files and order files and do a quick reconciliation without pulling my hair out, without manipulating Excel files or macros or cutting or pasting or any of that. Anything beyond reconciling the orders against the payments, for me, was a bonus, but for merchants, was going to be important. So the program does that. It looks at the orders, reconciles the payments to orders, highlights discrepancies, but then it goes into all these other areas that we're going to talk about. But the bottom line on all this, if as a merchant, if you don't have the ability to understand, and I mean truly understand, what's going on in the business and how to manage it accordingly, you know, you'll go quickly from being profitable to breaking even, or worst case, losing money. And trust me, I've seen that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Tom so we can dive into the program. And I'm sure everyone else is going to have some of those wow moments like I've had over the last few weeks. So Tom, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Rox. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. What you're looking at right now is Communique for Amazon Seller Central. It's our dashboard. When you start up Communique, this is the first screen you'll come to. You see a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, a lot of data. Not all the data that's on these charts and graphs come from Amazon. Some of the data comes from a products table, purchase orders, shipping records, and things of that nature. So you pretty much have the ability to be able to decide to what level and degree of data you want to include and how much of this you actually want to use. So I'll just briefly show you a couple of dashboards. This is our sales at a glance to configure so that you can see a variety of different options. Select that. By default, we're filtering by purchase date, looking at product sales and all of the fulfillment types. You can change this easily to Amazon instead of merchant, and your values change. So now all you're doing is looking at FBA sales or merchant sales. And you have some additional filters here, like filtering by state. We go to California. I think you kind of get the idea. And for all those charts and graphs that have the ability to be able to change or filter, all you need to do is right mouse click and configure. Here are your refunds. This is your shipping summary. It shows you packages, orders, units. This is fulfillment, what's done by FBA, merchant. The other, that's actually non-Amazon fulfillments for those of you who do that. We do track that. On the lower left side here, we have buyer metrics, repeat versus new, average order value, product flow. You saw originally the settlements. We actually have this dashboard here which will show you as many as 30 different settlements, the peak and flow. So you have other charges, adjustments, fees, deposits, sales, revenue. You can control which ones you see. So you can turn off these and then look at deposits, sales, and revenue. Or you can just say turn those off. And let's just look at other adjustments and fees. Highly configurable. Daily shipping, ship flow, which ship method, top buyers, top product sales, top suppliers. Your workflow shows you your returns, shipments, and orders. So you can look at it by day and period. So right now we're looking at last month. We can look at last 30 days, last 12 months, last 12 weeks. You select the time frame. So that kind of gives you an overview of the dashboard. And really the idea behind the dashboard is to kind of give you a pulse of what's going on for your business so you can see an overall high-level view of what's going on. Across the top here on the ribbon bar, we have the various different reporting sections. We report on buyers. Although you're not allowed to market to the buyers, it is interesting to find out who's buying what and when and where, or from where I should say. So being able to do a little bit of marketing segmentation, get a little bit of business intelligence or analytics on your buyers is a good thing, and this section allows you to do that. Geographic and demographic areas, your orders, products, whole section of suppliers. We even have a dedicated FBA section for those of you who do FBAs. And of course, the most important part of this presentation is the whole settlement area. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I will show you our settlement feed, and this is where you import your settlement files. For the sake of our presentation here, we've already imported a bunch of them. All right, so these are various different settlement files over the course of time that we've imported. One of the advantages you have to this is that you can use it to help reconcile your bank account. An example would be, search. Let's say your bank statement date is August 1st through August 31st. So you can look at all of the settlements that were deposited in the month of August. So you should be able to go to your bank statement and pretty much look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different deposits for these amounts. If you don't, then obviously it's an issue. Now bear in mind that for the time that Amazon issues a deposit and the time you receive it in your bank account can have somewhat of a time lag. So you may need to look a couple days before or a couple days after. But this is a good way to be able to balance your statements with the deposits made. Anything else you'd like to add, Rox?
No, this works great. I've been using this for the last 2 weeks and I love it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the settlements now that we have settlement files imported. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at the accounting summary, and what this allows you to do, and one of the advantages to this report, as Rox mentioned earlier, that the way the cutoffs are for the deposit dates and stuff like that, that the settlement files do cross different accounting. One of the challenges here was to be able to see all of the transactions that actually occur in a particular period. So we developed this accounting summary where you say, as an example, show me or give me a list of all of our settled transactions for the last month. So we're going to click on this, apply. So there's 6,494 transactions. That includes orders, adjustments, and other charges. We'll see those here in a moment.
This is great when you get to the end of the year, and most people, your batches will run like through December 27th or 24th or something like that. You've got that little overlap at the end of the year. But of course, when you're getting ready to do taxes, you want to know exactly what should be in transit and those holding accounts. This gives you a different way of looking and getting those numbers and making sure they're accurate.
Okay, so let's go across the report here. So essentially what we're showing you here are for orders are sales, taxes collected, ship fee collected, other revenue, and then your total revenue. Here are your total fees for each order, and then your sales net, which is basically the deposit for each order, the type of a fulfillment it is, and what type of a transaction. These are adjustment transactions. We can actually scroll up here and look at orders, or down here I think we have, let's see, an other. Yeah, here we go. We have some others right here. Of course, one easy way to be able to look at these is to grab the type column, put it up here. As you saw, what we did now is we're organizing the different types together. And then as Rox likes, we can take the description and put it right over there.
And I do mine by deposit. That's my first filter. I like to see it by deposit date.
Okay.
It's so easy.
All right. Yeah. So essentially what we've done here is we've taken the type and we've grouped all the transactions by type, and then we've taken the description and we've grouped all the types by description. So right now what we're looking at are other transactions for all the month of August. We're looking at FBA inventory reimbursements, and there's 20 of them. So we can actually open up and look at the detail. So what you're looking at here essentially is that for the month of August, you've had $996.70 worth of inventory reimbursements. And let me kind of explain what those are, because there is a distinction to the different meaning here. You can have FBA inventory reimbursements in both other transactions and also adjustments. Let's see if we have any up here. No, there's none here for August. The difference is simply this. If an item is lost in the warehouse or damaged, okay, that is considered another transaction when Amazon accepts responsibility for that kind of inventory loss. When the FBA inventory reimbursement shows up in the adjustment section, typically what that means is that it's a return from a customer. It came back in unsellable condition, and Amazon has accepted responsibility for that. So that's important to know, because customer returns that are damaged and reimbursed in that category is different than items which are lost or damaged in the warehouse. Is that right, Rox?
It is, and this has been a really big issue with doing this project. A lot of people were just booking things to straight out sales when in fact, maybe it's a cost of goods or an inventory adjustment type of a journal entry that you should be making instead. And if you're in a state that, where you get taxed on gross sales, I mean, this becomes really important if you're a heavy seller up on Amazon.
So as you can see, by using the accounting summary this way and running all the transactions for a particular period and then grouping by type and description, you can easily see what types of charges, what types of credits and debits were provided for that period so that you can account for it correctly. Wouldn't you agree, Rox?
Yeah, and the other thing this is good for is, when you start looking at this, you will start to see a pattern in a lot of cases, and so maybe there's a particular product that's a problem, or, maybe you shouldn't be shipping something to the West Coast or the East Coast. So it gives you a lot of other insight beyond just the accounting, but from the accounting standpoint, it's absolutely wonderful.
Okay. I see we got a couple of questions coming in. Keep those questions coming. We will, in fact, answer questions at the end of the webinar. So as we go through, if you think of a question and would like to have it answered, by all means, please post a question here. We'll get to it at the end of the webinar. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll head on to another area of reconciliation. So this we're getting ready to go to is what's called order reconciliation. And we're going to reconcile our orders. Now, when we import the settlements that Amazon gives you, and I will back up and go back to the data feed and show you. Let's import. We automatically reconcile zero variances, meaning that if the settlement matches the order you have here, we automatically reconcile it so you don't have to deal with it. So really what you actually see by default in the reconciliation section are those that are out of balance. Okay?
I have to say something right here. I've been doing a lot of things going back to the beginning of January and pulling stuff into current for a lot of different clients. This has saved me. I can't even begin to tell you guys how much time this has saved me to be able to add the missing orders, because you can't necessarily get, Amazon will let you get 120 days worth of orders in a nice file format that gives you all the data that you really need. So this way you can just add all the missing stuff instead of going out and getting all the other order files. If you're generating that report every day, I mean, that just gets to be crazy. And then if you're used to reconciling in QuickBooks where you're putting your check mark manually on each side of the screen, right, this is doing all that for you in the background. I mean, it's unbelievable how much time it saves. I had to say that.
Yeah, well, no, thanks for putting that in. But let me make a clarification on the add missing orders option here, okay? As Rox pointed out, you can only go back 120 days. So if you want to go all the way back to the beginning of the year so that you have a list of all your sales and things of that nature, then you'll have to go back and grab those settlements, because you can go back to the beginning of the year and use the settlement files. So what we did for situations like that is give you the option of adding missing orders. So what it does is it brings a settlement in. If the settlement doesn't have a corresponding order, it automatically adds the order, okay? But I need to explain to you that that is not a replacement for importing the actual orders themselves, simply because the settlement files are missing a lot of data. For example, the settlement file contains no buyer data, no ship information, no state, no country, no zip code, no phone number. There's a lot of stuff that is missing, okay? Yes, there are basic sales information in there. There are SKUs and things of that nature. But if you're going to go back and do some data mining, business intelligence kind of stuff with both your orders and buyers, having nothing but orders added from your settlements is going to leave a big gaping hole in your data. And the other thing I want to say is that the whole point of the add missing orders is in the event that some way, somehow, an order is not captured through the order section, This is a convenient way to be able to insert that. It really wasn't designed to replace order import, but just basically to augment it. So that's kind of the caveat I want to give you about that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to reconciliation. We're going to search basically by default. It pulls in only those orders that didn't reconcile. So of the thousands and thousands of settlements and orders that we have in here, we only find 11 transactions that are out of balance. It's really pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's so quick. It's so nice.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up here in a column, and I want to show you something interesting. If you notice, what we're seeing here is that of these orders and grouping by orders, we're seeing two identical orders here, which immediately puts up a red flag. Why do you have two orders here? Of course, this one down at the end has only one, and so let's just take a look. All right, so if we look in here and see the order information, we look at the products, we compare that to the products from the order section, and we're looking at all this, it's all identical. And as we slip between the two of them here, they are identical. Here's the transactions from the settlement, any adjustments, and what I'm going to point out to you is simply this. What this is a split settlement. It's not obvious that it is, so you actually have to kind of look. And there's a telling bit of information here on the product screen. If we go down here and look, we see the different warehouses. So it looks like what Amazon did is they shipped this order from two different warehouses, and they settled this with two different settlements. Because if we look here, we see the settlement ID for this one and the settlement ID for that one are different. But the order dates and order information for both of these are the same. They just ship from different warehouses at different times. Now what we can do is we can add in another column here, the deposit column, and see when the settlement was deposited. Sure enough, different deposit dates, different settlement IDs, but they're identical. So it looks like what's happened here basically is that you got two different settlements for the same order because they were shipped from different warehouses and likely at different times.
And what will happen if you're using an order importer or an order manager and you're trying to go from that and deal with the stuff in QuickBooks is your offsetting account, your AR account or your cash holding account, whatever, they're going to be out of balance. And it could be, a couple dollars and it's not noticeable, and to where it's thousands of dollars. I mean, I've got client files where it's thousands of dollars sometimes, one way over or under at any given point in time. And this has given us a way to really drill in and see where and why. It definitely is helpful. And again, at the end of the year, end of the quarter, and being able to just drill in real quickly to see all these details has been invaluable. And Amazon makes mistakes. I mean, they sometimes don't pay, or we've found some interesting things over the course of time.
Yes, we have. And going to and talking about the detail, what this transactions tab right here shows you every single transaction that's been charged against your order and your item. And so you can actually see here that the settlement IDs are different. So even though it's the same order, they pay these out in different settlements. So it's quite obvious by looking at the detail what's actually happened here. And you can easily filter and look at all the fees, look at all the prices, and other type, if you had this, like for example, promotional and things like that, falls into a different category. Look at all the types. And then if there were any
I've had one of these that hit 4 settlement periods. One order that hit 4 different settlement periods.
Well, how in the world do they do that? I mean, they put the stuff on back order? I mean,
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Just different warehouses, and they get paid out weekly. One of the clients get paid out weekly, and 4 different settlements. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of things, as Rox pointed out, and if you didn't have this detail to look at, you wouldn't really kind of understand what's going on. Now, I will say this: when you have settlements which cross accounting boundaries, like say, for example, you have an order that was taken in August, you got a partial payment in August, a partial payment in September. I'm not sure what you think about it, Roxanne, but it just seems to me too onerous to account for it that way. They should really be accounted, when the order was originally placed, which would have been August.
Right.
And you just need to catch these and make sure that you get paid like you should. And if you recall, I told you about this one down here where there's only one payment, but it's out of balance. So let's go back and look at the products. Oh, I see. So apparently you only got paid for one, which is this item right here, and these two you haven't been paid for. But guess what? Look at the warehouse. So following the pattern that we saw here, it looks like they've already shipped this top item. They paid you, because you can see that right here. And this is going to be a split settlement as well. And so you need to keep an eye out for this, because hopefully the next settlement period, you should, in fact, capture the payment on this. Okay, so let's go talk about a couple others. So we looked at
how you can reconcile that real quick, though, and put a note in?
Oh, yeah. Sure. So in this particular transaction, we don't want to reconcile that one, okay, because that one we're waiting on. But let's take this one right here. We can say reconcile date, and we can just put the 16th, split payment. And you can put more information as you want, if you want. This is a free-form notes section. So we've just reconciled that one. You see right here where the reconciled flag came on and date. We'll come down to this one, and we'll do the same. And we'll apply that. So now these two settlements have been reconciled for that one order. We can actually go back and search. We have 11 transactions listed. Go back and research again. We're down to 9. So really all you're looking at in this screen are those which are unreconciled. So now that we've figured out what the problem is with these, we can write in what the issue is, put a little note, reconcile it, put the date on, it's done, move on to the next one. Okay, anything else you wanted to add with this, Rox?
No, I wanted them to see that, because that was one of my oh wow moments too. I'm like,
yeah,
oh wow.
Well, once you identify problems, you need someone to be able to record what the resolution was, if any, and then just mark it as being reconciled when it is reconciled. In other words, if you find out what the problem is, and we have with this transaction, which is a split settlement, then put it in the notes, reconcile it, set a date, and off you go. All right, so let's move on to a couple other screens. What I want to show you here is the orders missing settlements. Now, I believe with this particular data file. Oh, okay. This is a big one. The idea behind this particular screen will identify orders that haven't been paid. I have a little too much here, 5,068. Hopefully you don't have that many in the real world. But the principle still applies. You want to find orders that haven't been settled. That way you can go find out why. And let me bring the search screen back up. If you notice, the aging is set to 30 days. So what we're looking for is any order that's 30 days or older, and we're basing that on a purchase date, that hasn't settled. Give me that list. So, in this particular data file, we're looking at $306,008 of money that hasn't been paid. So technically, you can call that the float. Hopefully, you don't have that much money hanging out. But the idea basically being, that you're looking for items that haven't settled, so you can go figure out why it hasn't been paid. Because if it's been more than 30 days, clearly, you need to, find out why it hasn't been paid. Wouldn't you agree, Rox?
Yeah, this has been great. We found where people haven't uploaded tracking numbers, for instance, and you only have a certain amount of time to do that. So, you want to make sure you're on top of that. If you don't upload it, you don't get paid. You just, it's all free money for Amazon. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to remind you.
Okay, so what we're looking at here on this screen is what we call settlements missing orders. That's when a payment comes in and there's not a corresponding order that goes along with it. And so that would list those. So that means that you would, obviously if they paid you erroneously, they're going to take that money back. But if they did pay you, then you need to make sure you have the order in there that you filled your order. Normally on a merchant fulfilled type order, you generally don't miss these. It's possible, generally not, because you'll hear back from the customer. Typically what happens here, it's mostly on the FBA where you're more likely to see this kind of an issue. Okay, so you kind of get an idea of what we have here in the settlement section. We'll show you one more adjustment summary. Let's go to adjustments missing orders. Ignore dates. Okay, 157. So what this means basically, there was 157 adjustments that came in here, and there's not a corresponding order to meet that. So it's kind of a similar situation with settlements missing orders. You need to, try and get that order in there and find out what happened to it. So these are ways to be able to identify particular problems you might have. So let's go over and look at the order section since we've been talking so much about it. This is a way to be able to search for particular orders. There's a lot of different filters down here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick the adjusted last month. So what we're looking at are all adjusted orders for August. Found 182. There they are. you can either use this little tab button up here or double click and open up the detail screen. And what this will show you will be your settlement info and will be your adjustment info. Now, what we do...
This is really eye-opening. I don't know if you've got an example, but you can be losing money and not even realize it if there was a refund or return.
Yeah, let me give an example here. Let's go and look at adjustment amount, adjustment revenue. And what this means basically, of all the adjustments here, in addition to the $12,889 that you were adjusted last month, this is an additional $747 in additional refunds and fees that you paid. So, I mean, if you're having a product that has a high return rate, or if you're having a higher than normal return rate, you have a situation like this. I mean, you got, not only the return coming back, but you got extra money coming out of your pocket to cover the expenses Amazon charges you for that return. So that brings us probably to a couple other things too. We may not have time for today, but if you went over here to orders and looked at product sales, you can actually look at the products sold in the last 30 days, 90 days. We do, since we mentioned it, let me just go show you, okay? So this shows all the products that were sold in the last 30 days, and this is aggregated up. And what we want to look at here are, oops, sorry, touched the wrong thing. What we want to look at here are our gross margin. So everything you see here in red, these are all the products that were sold in the last 30 days. Everything you see here in red means you're losing money. That means it's costing you money to sell these things. So what we do here is we looked at the total revenue collected, COGS, your cost of goods, and then the fees that you pay to come up with gross margin. So if you're selling product here and you're having this red, you may want to either raise the price or stop selling that product. Anyway, that was kind of a little diversion there. Let's get back to the orders. Okay.
And a side note there, if you don't have your cost of goods already in here, import all your products in the COGS, he does give you a way to just say, 25% or 50%, calculate it so you've got a guesstimate in here, so you're close.
What Rox is referring to is when you import your order files in here, let's just do one or look at one, you can actually say, calculate costs for missing SKUs, here's your margin, and it also will add missing SKUs to your product table for you automatically. Okay, so I figured you guys probably kind of get an idea of all the things you can do here. These tabs on the side allows you to see additional detail. This would be all the products that were sold for this order, any shipments, transactions. These would be all of the order transactions that come in, actually the settlement transactions that were charged for the order. As you can see, the principal, shipping, and other charges, and then any adjustments. And these would be all the charges that were in your adjustment. So as you can see, it's quite detailed. Provides a way to be able to get more insight into your settlements and payments, a lot more insight into your orders, and to be able to figure out things like, what are we still waiting to be paid upon? Are there any variances with the reconciliation, and things of that nature? At this point, Rox, did you want to add anything else in, or did you think we need to be able to show something else?
I think we hit all the high points for this particular section.
Okay. Well, at least for this
webinar. Can't do this
with
macros, I'll tell you that.
No. Well, as you can see, I mean, it's pretty fast. I mean, we have probably about 50,000 orders in here, and about another 40 to 50,000 settlements. So it's a pretty fast database. We've been working with some clients where the database was as much as 250,000 orders and 150,000 buyers. Really huge, and they're getting the same kind of response and, and speed. It's just that they have a lot higher volume of data they're dealing with. Okay, so at this point, let's get back to our slides. They kind of conclude our little demo here. Let's go ahead and talk about roadmap. Okay, so what we're contemplating is the ability to be able to put in purchase orders, do warehouse and FBA replenishment, and with the ability at some point to do supplier invoices. We'll have an enterprise edition, probably first quarter 2015. For the most part, the single user site license that we have right now is probably more than adequate for most people. When you get into a larger business, and especially the one we just talked about, where from the 1st of January until end of August, you have 250,000 orders. You may want to think about maybe certainly be on the Enterprise Edition, be able to handle that kind of a load. All right, so we're also going to be working on an auto sync for Amazon, where your settlements automatically come down into Communique for Seller Central and automatically reconciles them for you in the background. You don't even have to do anything except look at the order reconciliation page. And then we'll be probably talking about other marketplaces, the shopping carts like eBay, Sears.com, Newegg, whatever, because once we have this in for Amazon, it's not really a big deal to be able to add the other stuff in. So that'll be something probably sometime next year we'll be working on. Okay, so let's see. All right, so availability and pricing is available September 16, 2014, which is today. We'll try and have it out this evening. We do have our web page up. Let's go here. Here's our main page, www.altarian.com. You go here to Communique for Seller Central, and you can place your order. It's ready to go. Oh, hold on. Let's get back to where we were at. All right, there we go. Okay, so a trial will be available. It's a very limited functionality. I mean, you'll know immediately if this is right for you. I mean, once you start doing the settlements or even putting in some orders, it'll be clear to you whether or not this will be useful. I mean, there's really no point in adding in products and shipping and purchase order information if this is not going to work for you. So clearly, we'll have a trial there. You'll be able to put in some orders, some settlements. You'll be able to tinker around with it. So the price is a standard license, which is a single user, it's $4.95. Site license, multi-user, so at the site you can install on as many computers as you like. That's $7.95, and the enterprise license to be determined when it's available. And so to learn more, you can contact us at sales@altarian.com, or you can visit our forum at communique.vbulletin.net, and that would be right here.
There's a lot of good content up there already, and constantly he's adding stuff, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and so if you need QuickBooks assistance, you can talk to Rox at consultingforqb.com. And for those of you who are resellers and are interested in the referral program, you can contact us at sales@altarian.com to learn more. I'd be glad to talk to you about that. All right, so now we have questions. Okay, let's look.
While you're reading those, one of the other things I wanted to mention is, Tom flies around the screen really quick,
Yes, I do.
And sometimes, for people it can be intimidating when you're watching these webinars, but I have to tell you that purposely when I test programs out, I don't have the person sit with me, to do the install typically or show me around. I like to see if I can get in there and push buttons and figure it out from the get-go. And I have to say that it's been quite easy, but right-click and you can get all your little extra menus and things like that. So you'll be zipping around just as quickly as he is in no time.
Okay, so now we'll get to some questions. Here's one question. Amazon sends my clients one deposit every 2 weeks, not by individual transactions. Are there different pay formats for selling fulfillment arrangements via Amazon? So let me explain how this works, okay? Yeah, there are those who get a settlement every 2 weeks, some who get a settlement once a week, some who get a settlement every day, okay? So, your client that gets a deposit every 2 weeks, they can use this with no problem. Simply it's just that they won't find out or be able to settle the transaction except for every 2 weeks. Order files, on the other hand, can be had every day, okay? Or however it is you set up your account. Is that right, Rox?
Yeah, you can, and they have an auto-generate feature that you can set up. And what I've been doing is going out and just generating a new report to get 120 days worth of data so I can get that 3 months in at one time, and then getting the fulfillment files by month. So you can, if you've got the login, you can go generate whatever you need. Some of these have been really big, and by the time I go through and request the reports, which is like click, 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 it doesn't take long, then they're available within a few minutes, and then you just download them and save them. He added the ability with the multiple file import for this reason. We might get 15 or 30 files, save them in one folder, What's cool about it is then when you do that multi-import, you just point it to that directory. It grabs all the things in there automatically, and then once it imports them, it moves them into an archive file. So, it makes it pretty simple. So if you don't have the login information for the Amazon client, you can just, tell them what to get, and it takes literally probably longer to log in than it does to get the files.
Okay, so let's answer the next question. So is this useful for fulfillment by Amazon rather than my clients shipping the products themselves? No, actually it works just fine with both. As a matter of fact, this has been designed specifically so that it helps both merchants who fulfill orders themselves and merchants who sell through FBA. The Communique for Seller Central does both equally well. One of the advantages is with the settlement file is that when you get paid for all three major types. And let me explain those to you, okay? You get paid for merchant-fulfilled orders, you get paid for FBA, fulfilled by Amazon, and there's a third type. It's called a non-Amazon fulfillment. Those also show up in the same settlement file, too. Let me explain that last type because it's a type that most people are unfamiliar with, but let me give you a scenario here. Let's say your warehouse, you sell an item, your warehouse is out of stock, but you have that item at FBA. You can tell FBA to ship that item for you and fulfill that order. In that example, that's a non-Amazon fulfillment because it was not sold on the Amazon marketplace. They just fulfilled the order for you. So, in fact, all three of those types will show up in your settlement file, so you can actually reconcile all of those. I will say, though, that on non-Amazon fulfillments, the only thing you get are the charges for fulfilling the item. There's no sales information since it wasn't sold, so those you probably can't reconcile too well, but at least you know what they are. Those fees do come out of your deposit so that you can account for those accordingly.
And one thing I want to interject here, for anyone that's out there that's trying to do their clients' books or help them or whatever, and you guys are using the batch payout, that's what we've used for years. That's what I've used since day one, literally since day one. That's really misleading because they use that other field for a lot of things beyond what that little pop-out box says. Sometimes it's order related, sometimes it's fee related, sometimes it's both, sometimes it's shipping. It's a combination of things. If you go up there and you try to, the other really interesting thing, you guys will love this. If your batch says, if you look at the top, it says the batch payout is, August 1 through August 14th, and then the next one starts August 14th through August whatever. But in reality, those settlement files that you're downloading starts a day before and ends a day after. So there's another reason why people have variances or larger floats from period to period. And if you pull they have the ability to go and generate a report based off of whatever time frame you want. So you can go do one for the month, for instance. You will never get those numbers to match any other numbers because same idea here. You're not exactly sure what criteria is being used. So those reports won't match your batch payout reports ever.
Well, let me throw something in here, Rox, okay? When you do request a report like that from Amazon, the moment you request it today is the time that it uses, and then it works its way backward. And then the previous day through whatever the end range is going to be are whole days. So today that you request it is at that moment you request it, so it's a partial for that day, not the whole day. You would think they would do the whole day. They don't, all right? So it goes partial for the day that you request it, at the time that you request it, and then whole days back there, and that's the reason why it's difficult to be able to request those files and have them match up. Isn't that right, Rox?
Yeah, but the accounting ones that I'm talking about, you can go and do like January, February, March. So they would be whole days, but they still won't match to when you run, if you look at those batch payouts. So there's a lot of these, for instance, I knew that there was a delay. If a batch ends on the 14th and begins on the 14th, you have between 12 and 36 hours there that you can have float time. That was bad enough. But now we find out that, it's actually a day before and a day after, so you're automatically at a 48-hour float time. Forget 12 hours.
Okay. All right, so next question. I recently found a duplicate charge for removal fees and have also identified some inbound transportation charges I suspect of being doubled. It is difficult for me to drill down on this type of charge on Amazon's reports, and I end up submitting tickets. Does your product help with discovering any problems of this sort? Rox, do you want to take that?
Absolutely, 110% and then some. And whatever you're doing now is you won't have to spend all that time. This takes literally minutes. It's crazy good.
Yeah, and I will point out too, and we can just go over here and look real quick, and we can come back to the accounting summary, which is probably the place you want to come. So you have the ability to be able to search by all types and date ranges across settlements or for particular settlements. So you could actually see, for example, when adjustments are being posted, multiple adjustments are being posted to an order, or when you have the same charge over and over again. If you recall, we showed the type here, which is other transaction, removal complete. There's 18 of these. You got storage fees, storage renew billing. These are FBA inventory reimbursements. So all the transaction types that are in here, the way Amazon categorizes them will show up in this. Now, let me explain to you the differences between adjustment and other transactions. Other transactions, when they come in, are not tied to a specific order. Typically, it affects your deposit, but it is not an adjustment or a refund for an order. Adjustments, on the other hand, these are adjustments made specific to orders. Most of them are refunds. Some of them are service fees, and typically these service fees come in after the adjustment's posted or the refund is posted. And then you have the description here of the A to Z guaranteed refund. So all these would be specific to an order, and you have all the detail here. You can filter, for example, by order and see all of the transactions regardless of time. So if you suspect that an order has multiple charges that are not right, you can actually filter by that. And as I mentioned, filter by settlements, date ranges, transaction types, fulfillment types, and things of that nature. Okay. So let's get back to more questions. Okay, let's see. This is for you, Rox. Do each of these orders import as a sales receipt and create a new customer each time? Well, actually, I can probably answer that for you.
Yeah, that's somebody that's using QuickBooks. So the cool thing about this is it's a standalone program. So if you're using QuickBooks or order managers or order importers, that's fine, you know, but you would use this for reconciliation purposes. If you have QuickBooks and there's no linking or integration, you know, I'm not a big believer in e-commerce world of making customers and bringing all that data into QuickBooks because you blow the file up so quickly. And even with Enterprise, it bogs it down. So what you would do is it brings the detail into here, into this program, which is completely standalone. So you have all the detail that you need, and then in QuickBooks you can just post a, you know, a weekly or, you know, every other week or whatever your entry for sales and fees and so forth. So if they want to see the detail, they come here, and that way your client can continue to use Pro or Premier QuickBooks. They don't have to go up to Enterprise. And you're going to get more accurate numbers, guaranteed.
Okay, so what I did here to show you and illustrate what Rox is saying is I came over to the buyer section and I did a real simple search to give me a list of customers who have purchased 2 or more times in the last 90 days. Okay, the point of all this is to show you that when a customer buys for the first time, we record the buyer in here, and then when additional purchases come in over time, we determine that the buyer is a repeat buyer, and that customer does not get added again, so they're only actually in there one time. Now, some of you may not know that Amazon, when they give you your Amazon email address, it's unique to each and every single customer. Okay, so that's an easy way for us to be able to find out if this is the same customer or not. So we do record the buyer information in here, but it's only recorded once, and then we'll associate multiple sales and purchases to that customer when we identify that email address is in here again.
And one other thing I want to add to that, if you're using an order importer, they use that MWSC, you know, to sync everything up. Well, Amazon throttles the downloads of orders, and so what I've encountered over the years in using multiple different third-party tools, which I love, you know, but what I found is that we end up dropping orders a lot. Sometimes we'll get duplicates, but a lot of times we have dropped orders. And I've not encountered that with this at all because we're using the actual settlement files or the order files. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's an important distinction because when you use the actual order files, whether it's FBA or merchant fulfilled from Amazon, and you use the actual settlements and you bring those together, I mean, you're getting exactly what Amazon is saying has been sold and what they've paid you for. So the likelihood of having your data corrupted or altered through another program is like zero. I mean, what you see here is actually what's coming directly from Amazon.
Yeah, apples to apples.
Apples to apples comparison, that's exactly right. And how that differs, if you're using an order management system like MOM or Stone Edge or some other system like that, they have to import these orders, and yes, they are getting them from Amazon, but what they wind up doing is massaging the data and twisting and turning it to work in their particular structure. Most of these order management systems were not designed for the markets like eBay and Amazon and Newegg and Sears.com and all that. They were designed for the web cart. And the way to really easily understand the difference here is that when you do a web cart and people are making purchases, they don't calculate and pay for shipping until they get to the end. Same thing is true with sales tax. So when that order comes in from the web cart, you have a variety of items, but you only have one ship cost, one tax, and that's generally aggregated to the order level, not the item level. And how Amazon and other markets are different is that each item, the ship fee is separate, the sales tax calculation is separate for each and every single item. So when that data comes over, you have the sales price, you have the shipping that you collected, you have the sales tax collected, and whatever other revenue, like gift wrap and all that good stuff. And so it's structured a bit differently. And so what we have here with Communique for Seller Central is that the layout is identical and compatible with the markets. So when that data comes over here, you can, in fact, still look at all that detail.
Yeah, I can guarantee if you're using an order importer or an order manager, either one, you'll have discrepancies because of everything that we have found that ends up in that other field.
Okay, so next question here, it's about QuickBooks. How does this interface with QuickBooks? Intuit Sync that I hear is going away March 2016 or something else. You want to handle that, Rox?
Yeah, that's right. So the Sync engine is going away. This currently is not integrated with QuickBooks. It is kind of, he's thinking about it. I've been talking to him about it for a while.
Well, that's on our radar screen here. Yeah,
it's on the radar
screen.
Yeah, so right now there is no integration. You would just use this to do the reconciliations, checks and balances, get your insight, and then you would book your entries manually into QuickBooks.
Okay, so does this integrate with QuickBooks? Next question, QuickBooks, can you import to QB? I'll let Rox handle that.
Not currently.
Okay. All right, so last question here. If it doesn't interface directly with QuickBooks, why is a potential enterprise product in the wings? Reason being is because volume of data and number of users. Obviously, if you have a small business, you have 1 or 2 people, you're doing, 50, 60, 100,000 sales a month, the standard edition is probably sufficient for that. But if you have a much larger operation, there are those out there, and you're doing 500,000 or $1 million a month, and you've got 3 or 4 or 5 people who need to access the data, then an enterprise version is well suited for them, because they'll find that the standard edition, even with a site license, is probably not going to be as robust a solution as they would probably require. All right, so next question is, does it provide an accounting summary so that you know what to book to QuickBooks by settlement?
Yeah, the accounting summary is what I've been using.
All right, so let's go back and look at that. We've seen that thing quite a few times. Excuse me. Let's go to the adjustment.
And then I've been adding in everything I can see from the display up the top, so I have all the different fees and so forth.
Okay, so tell me how you want this to be.
Yeah, so I filter mine by deposit, and that's where I start.
Okay, so let's close this. All right, so here's the entire accounting summary screen for the entire month of August.
Yeah, go up and add in the other fees, the promo fees, all that stuff that we can add and filter by deposit date. And so what
Okay.
that'll give you is it'll give you, just like what you see up on Amazon, those batch payouts that you're probably using now, the numbers won't tie because they lump things, bottom line, they lump things. Where in here, the overall numbers tie as far as what went into the bank and so forth, but it's giving you the proper breakdown, and you can go with that what you will. If you want to group it together, you can, or if you want to have individual accounts, you can do it that way as well. So by deposit, you would see your sales, your taxes, your shipping, your other revenue, the sales fees, promo fees, ship fees, other fees, total fees, and sales net. So you have all that breakdown by deposit batch. And then you can just click in and you can see whatever detail you need to see for that particular batch. And you can filter to group and all that good stuff too.
So I guess the long and short of it is you have all the categories here with all the fees that you need, and you can use this screen right here to book to the correct journal entry. Is that right?
Right. That's right. And you're going to get it in the right spot using this. If you're using that batch payout, and again, I've been using it literally since the beginning of time. I go back to when Amazon started. Not to date myself. But, you will end up with things in revenue that you really, in sales revenue that you really should have decreased your COGS account instead. And if they're looking at gross margins and the margins being as tight as they are, it's really important.
Yeah, and I think the illustration I gave earlier about the FBA inventory reimbursements, I mean, when you look at that accounting summary from Amazon, it doesn't even tell you what that is. You don't even know what that is.
You don't have a clue what's in other unless you try to download the file and then try to do your own kind of macros and sorting. You don't have a clue what's in that number. Literally,
yeah, that's right.
Have a clue.
Yeah, and then the illustration we gave too is that you can have this actual type FBA inventory reimbursement in both other transaction and also an adjustment. And depending on which transaction type it's in determines how you book that in QuickBooks. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but if it's in other transactions, Rox, that's charged against COGS, and if it's in adjustments, that's charged against sales. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
unless
you
look
structure QuickBooks to be just like what you see here, you can have all these sub-accounts if you want, to give the client that insight without them going through. If you want to offer this as a service, then you do all this and book it that way, and they can look at their P&L and see sales by, product and returns and, all the way down, storage fees, the whole 9 yards.
Every single category to get billed with. And if you're doing FBA, generally if it's merchant fulfilled only, you won't see a lot of variety of charges. But believe me when I tell you, if you're doing FBA, you can see a pile of different charges here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw one on another client that just totally took me aback. And basically they were charged 2 separate times for a total of $60 to put a label on boxes because it was missing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen $9 orders, and the merchants lost $17.
Yeah, because all the fees are associated with it.
Yeah, it was hard. It's horrible, and you won't realize this without looking at the data this way. You honestly won't realize it.
Okay. So the last question is, no, we're not talking about QuickBooks Enterprise. We're talking about the Enterprise version of Communique for Amazon Seller Central. Okay. All right, are there any other questions out there? Rox, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, nothing I can think of at the moment.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. We appreciate your time. I want to thank Rox for help co-hosting the webinar.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we just had someone not ask a question but made a comment. This is cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. We worked hard on it. There are more things that we're going to do and more things we can do. But right now, the way it sits is going to be very, very helpful. And you'll get to a point where you'll wonder how you're able to manage your Amazon sales without this tool. You'll say, I got to have it. So anyways, thanks for kind words. We appreciate it. Everyone have a nice day. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.